Hey fantasy fans, welcome back. This is Dan here with TreeBeard Book Reviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing Malice by John Gwynne. Okay guys, first I want to say welcome back and thank you for continuing to watch my channel. I just want to say, if you like the content I'm creating, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I've also created a Discord channel, so if you'd like to speak with me on the Discord, we can chat. We can chat about books, the books I'm currently reading, or books you'd want me to read in the future, and just have some general book discussion. Please hit me up on the Discord. I can't wait to speak to all of you, and I think we should get into this review. So I read Malice by John Gwynne. So this book is the first book in The Faithful and the Fallen. So this book, I say I read it. I actually listened to it on audiobook, and I'm going to talk about in this review. I'm going to go into some spoilers in this one. I kind of have to. It's a pretty big book, or it's a pretty long book. It was about 24 hours on on Audible. I mean, it's a little bit faster than that for me because I usually listen at like 1.6 to like 1.8 speed. You kind of need to, personally, I think. I go so slow. So, yes, sorry. But one thing I'm going to get into is talk about the book, the overall plot, the things I liked, the things I didn't like about the book, and what my overall rating is, and will I be continuing with this series. So, yeah, I think let's get into it. Okay, so Malice. So this is the first book. It's the first book in The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. And this world is the world is set in is called the Banished Lands. So I guess to kind of preface this story, so what's happening? What's the setting really? So there's these two gods, Azeroth and Elyon, and they're the two main. So there's a good side and a bad side. One side had his cohort of angels. One side had his cohort of demons or banished ones. And there's a war between them. And Azeroth was defeated by Elyon and sent to like a different kind of plane of existence. And Elyon kind of triumphed and left the world to men and giants. And eventually the world, kind of began to get corrupted through the influence of Azeroth from this other dimension. And through this corruption, Elyon forsake his creation of humans and giants and scourged the land, them becoming the Banished Lands, and retreated from kind of existence in a sense. He's kind of retreated away. He's no longer a part of this world in a sense that he's forsaken his creation. So it really sits around these main characters you're following of Corbin, Castell, Evnis, Cohen, his sister, Corbin's sister, and Veridis. So there's probably a few more. There's like a few little minor POVs you're getting, like Camelin and stuff like that. But those are your big cast, like Corbin, Cohen, Veridis, and there's also a character Nether. He's a secondary character. Well, I guess he's a secondary character. He's not a POV character. And so it's set in this world of the Banished Lands where there's this eminent god war that's going to be happening, and there's this prophecy of the bright star and the black sun, who are, one's the chosen of Elyon and one's the chosen of Azeroth. And it's going to be this kind of coming together of nations of the bright star versus the black sun. So that's really the synopsis of the story. It's like a good versus evil, and you're following these young coming of age it's these chosen one characters. So that's really it. I'm going to talk about a little bit of spoilers in each. I kind of want to talk about the bad first in this one. This is going to be a bit of a reverse review for me. I kind of really want to get into the bad first, and then we're going to get into the good, because I think we should finish on the good with this one and not focus on the bad. So let's get further into the review. Okay guys, so let's talk about some of the things I didn't like about The Faithful and the Fallen, Malice, book 1. So as I said, we're doing a little bit of reverse here. Talk about the bad first. Biggest thing like for me is like I didn't care about any of these characters. I really didn't, and I don't know, maybe it's because I was listening to an audiobook. Like the audiobook performance was really good. I thought it was a fairly decent audiobook performance. No knock to the guy there. But I think it wasn't like I didn't start caring about any of the characters till like chapter 40. And I'm like, that took a long time. It took a long time. Like, I'm all for slow books. Like, I love, like, books that kind of are a little bit slower, but man, you gotta do. It was so slow, okay? And I didn't care about any of the characters. Like Corbin, I'm like, I don't care about you, Corbin. You're so boring. You're unbelievably boring. And then you have Veritas. Like, Veritas is like a really good sword fighter, but he's like kind of a stupid character. He's like really dumb. Like, in my mind, he's just really stupid. And he's like, oh, I'm so faithful to Nefair. I'm going to defend Nefair. It's my first kind of job, and this is my first real friend besides my brother, and I'm going to protect him because he's the king, like the future king. Nefair's a giant piece of shit too. I don't. I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to color this. Like, I really did not like any of the characters till much later in the book, and it took a long time. It took a really long time for me to like any of these characters. So, but like, so that was one thing that was negative for me. These characters are effing boring. Corbin was boring. He's just like generic boy who's like chosen one. He does have some redeeming qualities later on. Like, he gets a lot more interesting later. But at first, like, you're boring, Corbin. Like I said, Veritas, just typical boring, kind of like good with a sword. So there's this other character, Castell. Castell was interesting. Castell was a really good character, and I really liked his arc. So I'll talk about Castell later in the good. So thinking on, there's Evnis. Again, you don't really learn too much about Evnis. And it's kind of like the smaller characters who are really good in this book. So I'll talk about that in the good later. But yeah, couldn't give a crap about any of the characters. Like the main cast, like these are like the big cast. Like, you need to care about these, and you're like, I don't. So that was a negative for me. Was some of the main cast just couldn't care about. So going on further, like the plot, dude, the plot is slow in the first half of this book. Like, I really like John Gwynne stuff. Like, I read, it's in my review there, Shadow of the Gods. Holy cow, that was a great book. And you can really see his writing matured, like, by that book. Like, I think he'd written 6 books, he'd written 6 books up to reading Shadows of the Gods. So I think this is his first published work. You can kind of feel like, he's still a new writer. Like, he's still developing this world. So, I'm not going to knock him too much there. Like, there isn't a lot of world building going on in this plot. Like, it's like, so the world's really loose in my mind, at least. You don't have a really good picture of the world, and that could be just by reading an audiobook. And I don't know if there's a map in the front of the book. So if you know that, maybe comment below and say, oh yeah, the map's really good. But I don't see that in the audio version. So yeah, so that was like the plot. The plot's good. It just takes a long time. Like, the last act of the book was really good and it really engaged me. But kind of getting up to it, it's just like, it kind of meanders a lot. And you're like, why do I care? Why do I care about this? And there's this prophecy kind of, that's this prophecy that's spoken of in the background. A lot of characters reference it. But you don't really learn much about it, and I know it's the first book in a series, so he's kind of doing all that setup in book 1. So book 1 is really foundational in setting up this world. So yeah, some of the negatives, like I said, the characters were boring as crap at first. The plot, like, it was a little meandering at some points, but other than that, like, that wasn't too bad. So those are the really big negatives for me. Like, there are some other little gripes and stuff like that. And I think it's just maybe because, like, these characters are teenagers, and maybe I'm past that, like, stage of reading, like, young adult. But saying that, this book isn't classified as young adult. It's classified as, like, full adult fantasy. So, and the one thing is, like, a lot of time passes in this book. Like, I think it's like 2 years or 3 years that pass in the book. So he really does time jump, which I liked. It needed to happen. So I will give John Gwynne that. Like, other than that, I think we'll maybe get into what's good. Okay, so let's talk about some good things. I don't want to harp on, because like I said, that's why I want to discuss like some of the bad things first, because this book was slow. The book had, like, very early on, like, didn't have interesting characters. There wasn't a lot, like, gripping me in the plot really early on. So, like, what are the good things? There's some really great supporting characters in this. So the characters that kind of shine for me were um, Gar, who is Corbin's like he's training Corbin, but he's also like the stable master in Arden, the city where or the capital where like the country where Corbin and his family live. Loved Gar. Gar is a great character. He's one of those characters like you. He's got like he's that typical mysterious past, like mentor who's secretly kind of training Corbin, and you learn like there's this plot by Gar and Corbin's mother that they have this background this history together that you don't know, and they're secretly training Corbin like for something. Like I said, there's this prophecy in the background of the bright star and the black sun. So yeah, so there's that. So Gar, great character. Gar, really loved him. Like he has a great relationship with Cohen. Great relationship with Cohen, which is Corbin's sister. She works in the stables with Gar, but he has a great relationship with Corbin. And I guess getting into relationships too, Corbin has a great family relationship. And then this is one thing I really want to like, give John Gwynne a real strong nod is he goes against expectations. This character has a great family life. Like Corbin, he has great family supports. Like his parents aren't like dead within the first chapter or two of the book. So he's got this beautiful, loving, supporting family who, have taught him well, like raised him as honest and best as they could. So like huge props to like having not breaking that trope of like the chosen one family has to die instantly and you go and thrust on this adventure. No, it really doesn't happen. Like Corbin has this bringing up where he's a child and he has these doubts and these fears, and through the training of his parents and Gar, he has so much character growth, and then eventually he becomes a very competent character, and he has confidence, and he has skills, and he has like just mastery of certain things, and I did like Corbin's growth. So I'm gonna talk about characters here really though. So Gar, great supporting character, mysterious past, amazing with a sword, just a total badass. Like Gar in the end of the book, holy shit, like blew my bloody socks off. I was taking my dog for a walk and I have my headphones in and I was listening to it. I'm like, oh my god, this book's like the ending. The ending in this book, the last like hour, it's like rocket fuel. It goes from like 0 to 100 in like no time. So that's what we'll say. Gar, cool character. So there's these two other characters, Castell and Machian, and like so Castell, he's like a minor lord, or he's the nephew of a king. Like his father is the king, was the king's brother, and then there was this other character who he's kind of who's like is Castell's protector. His name's Machian, and he's protecting Castell. He's sworn to protect Castell. Castell is like this great sword fighter, really pure of heart character who just wants to live his own life, and he's got his own problems, and he doesn't want to. He wants to face them, but he doesn't really want what his enemy. So his enemy is his cousin Jael, who sees Castell as a threat to his bid for the throne of their little kingdom, and Castell doesn't want any of it. And he has this great mentor Machian, who's just like, again, grizzled veteran. Like maybe these are the characters I love. Maybe it's because I'm like grizzly looking myself, but yeah, I loved those characters of Gar and Machian and Castell. Just loved their dynamic together, loved their brotherhood, their relationship of this, like because Castell's parents are dead, and Machian has really protected Castell for most of his adult life, and he's essentially raised Castell as his son. And so this is going to be a spoiler. I'm going to spoil this right at the end here for Castell. Castell dies, and he's a POV character that dies at the end of the book. And oh my god, you feel it so hard, and like it was so well done. Like, and I was always thinking, I'm like, oh, Machian's gonna die. Like, and that's what I mean about the subverted expectation with John Gwynne in this book, where he kills Castell and Machian sees him die, and he's like essentially watching his son die, and it was so sad and so heartbreaking, but frick, it was good. It was so good, and it gripped me so hard, and I was like, oh, like John Gwynne, you monster. But one thing I will give him props is like he wasn't afraid to kill characters, and like a lot of characters died at the end of this book, and like big props to him. He killed the POV character. Really loved, and like Castell was my favorite of the main POV characters. Like I said, between Corbin, Castell, and Veritas, Castell was my favorite, and he killed him, and I'm like, oh, you monster! But it was so well done. It was so beautiful, so sad, and I think it needed to happen. And big props to John Gwynne for reading that in the book, like reading where this trajectory he had to go. So love that. Great job. Big props. I know I said props there a lot, but it was good. And then this other character I want to talk about, Camelin. He's this like he's kind of like a Robin Hood character in a sense that he's in this band that's in the forest outside of Arden that's like raiding this country of Arden where Corbin lives, and he's just trying to survive. He's literally like a man of the woods, like doesn't want a lord, just wants to be free, wants to be a free man, and live by this honor, this code of honor. And yeah, so you meet him a few times. He doesn't have a lot of POV chapters, but he's got some pretty good chapters where he doesn't, add a lot of depth himself, but he adds depth to other characters. Like he adds growth to Corbin, and you really see like his motives. Like I just want to be free. I don't want to be bonded to any king. I don't want to be serving any king. And he was a really good character. Camelin, like really liked Camelin. So. I guess get on to the last thing I really liked was the growth. So the growth of these main characters of Corbin and Veritas. Castell didn't really have too much growth because I think that was obviously because he is eventually killed off later. But Corbin has some great growth. Like he starts off as a kid and you're just like, I don't care. You're kind of annoying. You're just a kid. You're just an annoying kid, and you make stupid kid decisions, which is fair, right? But then he grows up, and like then he meets. There's a really pivotal moment where he meets and saves a wolven. It's kind of like a dire wolf. We'll just say it's a dire wolf. He saves this pregnant wolven, and then later on in the book, there's like a hunt for wolven, and this hunt finds this female wolven who'd had her pups, and she's protecting her cubs, and the other pack are protecting the cubs. And these humans kill all the wolves except for one pup, and Corbin saves it. And they want to kill the pup, but instead he demands king's justice, and the king judges, or it actually ends up being the king's wife judges, whether this pup should live or die, and she judges that she should live. So Corbin has this wolf pup that he is raising, who's this monstrous wolf named Storm, and she adds so much to Corbin's character. He needed that. Like he just needed something to make him more interesting, and that's what made him more interesting was this wolf pup, Storm. And then you see just Corbin's growth, where he's like being bullied by some character named Rafe, and then eventually Vaughn, who's Evnis's son. So he's got a lot of trials to go over that kids would face, like a bully. He has to face his bully, face his fears, learn his strengths and his weaknesses, and become competent. And that's what Corbin really does. And in the end of the book, Corbin's like really kind of competent with a sword. He's still like it's his first battles. He's still afraid to get into the fight, but there's so much growth for Corbin. Really enjoyed Corbin's arc. And so then the next character I want to talk about, Veritas. So thing with Veritas, he's kind of tied in with Nether. He's the prince of like this like the High King, and his father, Nether's father, Aquilus, is king. And so Veritas is serving. He's gone to serve and become part of Nether's army, and he's like a really good swordsman. And so that's really it. It's like Nether thinks he's the bright sun, and he thinks that he's the chosen one who's going to bring light, bring Elion back. And Veritas believes him. He's like, yeah, you are. Like, I believe you say who you say you are. And so it's Veritas's, journey of following Nefer, trusting Nefer, earning Nefer's trust, and then eventually, like, you know, his growth to, like, become a commander and a leader of armies and developing new strategies for war. I should have maybe added Nether to, like, the bad, but I guess he's not, because, like, he's a baddie. Like, you know, like, we all know he's a baddie. Like, he's the chosen one, but, like, you're in your whole mind thinking, like, you're the Black Sun, you piece of crap. Like, you say you're the bright star, but, like, but he believes it. Like, it's just like, do people really believe themselves to be evil, like, who do evil things? So he sees himself as the good guy, and you're thinking, like, this guy's the Black Sun. And eventually, so Nether's father is murdered by some other king. And it's eventually Veritas going to get revenge for Nether, and then Veritas then going on to attack some of these giant clans. So that's really it. Like, there's a lot of good in this book. Like, Nether, I think, even though in the first book he's kind of comes across as a good guy the whole time, he's not. Like, he's a good baddie. You know what I mean? Like, you want to, like, just. But saying that, I really enjoyed it. As you see, I have a lot more good to say about the book in the end, but it just started a little rough for me. This was a hard one to get into, guys. And I wanted to give you that first. And like I said, like I said, I'm going to try and do a little bit more spoiler stuff in the reviews, because I just want to have some discussion with you on these books, because I feel like, with some of the spoiler-free stuff, it's hard to get into some of that discussion. So I think we're just going to get into my rating for Malice. Okay, so what would I rate Malice? You know what? I had a really hard time rating Malice, because at first I was like, this book's like a 3 for me. Like, I was like, I'm not getting into it. I'm not enjoying it. Am I gonna return it? Like, I don't want to do that because I like John Gwynne. And then it really picked up. Honestly, it hits its stride about, like, chapter 30. Because there's, like, a section in the book where, like, they're waiting for this prophecy, like the Midwinter's Night is what they're waiting for. And really after that, it just takes off. And it really brought this book from, like a low 3, like low high 2 to, like, a 3.9. So my rating is 3.9 for Malice. Yeah, I really enjoyed it in the end, actually. Like, so the last act of the book was unreal, really good. Like, so much shit was happening that it actually really picked up. And I guess, that really kind of segues into, will I continue with the series? And the series is, yeah, heck yeah. Like, I've actually already started listening to Valor. Really enjoying that so far, because it's, you've had all that character development in Malice. So, like, you can tell, like, he's like, okay, you've had that character development stuff. We're going full tilt. So that's what I really like about Valor so far. So I'm going to talk about that. Probably should have a review coming up for that. I want to say in November. It all depends. Like I said, I have a lot of reviews that need to come out. I need to still come out with my Andromeda Strain review. So, yeah, that's really it. That was Malice by John Gwynne. So, again, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.